I'm off to buy some chocolate. I'm off to buy some chocolate. I'm off to buy some chocolate. I have an emotional connection with this brand because I grew up in South Australia, and I believe the very first Haigh's chocolate store in Australia was in Adelaide. Haigh's is Australia's finest chocolatier. Is that a word? Chocolatier? And I love chocolate, but because it's such a revered brand, it's not cheap. So I only occasionally buy chocolate from Haigh's. I love dark chocolate. What have we got? 200 grams, dark Davidson plum block, $17.90 Australian, almost $17. Dark roasted macadamias. What about frogs? I love dark chocolate frogs. $16.50, 10 pieces for dark chocolate frogs. Dark chocolate pastilles, $31. My favourite is at least 70% cocoa dark chocolate. We have a 70% block here, 100 grams, 15 Australian dollars. Milk chocolate, still $15. Check out the frog, $33.90. So Haigh's is Australia's finest chocolate store, so the prices are naturally going to be higher than what you find in a supermarket. I mean, we saw in that store a 200 gram block of chocolate, almost 18 Australian dollars. So as much as I love Haigh's, I'm not going to eat it every week because of the price. I'm only going to eat it on a special occasion, like my birthday. So all the other times I want to eat chocolate, it's going to be more cost effective for me to visit one of Australia's supermarkets, because surely the chocolate prices there are lower than Haigh's. Look at this, $8 for dark almond. That's high. Oh my goodness. This is my favourite, Tony's Chocolonely, $8.30. That would have been unheard of a few years ago, that price. Even Lindt, $6.50. Okay, 90% cocoa, that's a bit much for me. 85 I can handle. $6.50. That's $6.50 per 100 grams. Look at this, Aero mint, 108, only 118 grams. It's Aero, so it even feels light, feels like it's just made out of air. $6. All right, $6 for Cabriole Gold. That's dark chocolate, 180 grams. That works out to $3.33 per 100 grams. But look, the supermarket, in this case Coles, has created its own brand. Okay, it's not 180 grams, it's 100 grams, but the price is $3. That's almost the same, $3 per 100 grams. So why has the price of chocolate increased so much? Well, one possible reason is cocoa prices have actually doubled, and that's a result of climate-induced factors. So excess rain and drought in West Africa, where a lot of cocoa is grown, has affected the price of cocoa worldwide. As I said, doubled. Is that why chocolate is now so expensive? Or could it be problems with the supply chain? We know shipping costs have increased. So $6 for a 180 gram block of dark chocolate. I'd be curious to know if any of my Australian viewers remember how much this was a few years ago. It certainly wasn't $6. So as I said before, cocoa prices have doubled. Is this a reason why the supermarkets are charging more for chocolate? I mean, I could get behind the price rise. Sorry, I just got to have a piece of chocolate. That's good. I could get behind the price rise if the supermarket said, we've raised the price of a 180 gram block of chocolate. Oh, by the way, 180 grams, this is an example of shrinkflation because I'm certain blocks of chocolate were bigger in the past. You certainly were right about blocks of chocolate shrinking over time, you handsome devil. Tim here, editing my video, and I found out something interesting. A Cadbury family block of chocolate has indeed shrunk over time. In 2005, it was 250 grams. In 2013, it was 220 grams. And this year, in 2024, it's shrunk to 180 grams. Now, back to the show. But as I said, I could get behind the price rise if the supermarket said chocolate is more expensive because we're paying more money to the growers. But I know that's not the case. For instance, in Ghana, among the 800,000 cocoa growers, the cocoa farmers have to subsist on $2 a day. So the money from the price increase certainly isn't going towards them. So what other reasons could there be for the price increase? As I said, cocoa prices have doubled, but I just read this morning that doubling, which is an extra $5,000 per tonne of cocoa, that should only translate to, I think, an extra $1 per 100 grams, 50 US cents per 50 grams. So in Australia, could there be another reason why the price of chocolate has become so inflated? Well, yeah, unfortunately in Australia we have a duopoly. You just saw me in one supermarket, Coles, but in Australia we have the big two, Coles supermarket, Woolworths. Yes, there are other supermarkets, but Coles and Woolworths combined have cornered 63% of the Australian market. That's why it's called a duopoly. So just to put that in perspective, the US has 4 main supermarket chains, but of those 4 combined, they only have 34% of the market.
So I imagine that is more of a healthy competition to keep prices competitive.
Yes, so in Australia, insufficient competition is putting upward pressure on prices. Oh, and the UK has 2 major supermarket chains as well, but those 2 combined in the UK, I think it's only about 43% of the market. So 2 supermarkets in Australia have cornered 63% of the Australian market. And I don't want to be too negative here, but that's an opportunity for price gouging, because when there's insufficient competition, you can raise prices well above the cost price of something. Okay, I don't expect the supermarket to sell chocolate for cost. They're among Australia's biggest employers. They give young people jobs. They need to make a profit. But still, even when we factor in inflation in Australia, I'm sorry, I've got to eat some more of this chocolate. It's so good.
Okay, while you're talking, maybe I'll just share a thought. So my thought is, how did they get away with a duopoly? It just seems crazy, and for the last few years, we've just been seeing that they've been underpricing their own range. They've been bringing out more and more of their own products, as we just saw in Coles. If we keep supporting these cheaper brands, then they will remove other major brands, and the other major brands may go bankrupt as well. And then once they've got the market share, they'll put their prices up. This seemed really obvious, yet we all kind of bought into it because, if we can save $3 on an item, we'll save $3 on an item. But this has come around and actually bitten us in the arse now, because now they have taken over as a duopoly, and they are now seeming to really be price gouging us. And there's even inquests in Australia into this behaviour. So, handing back to you now that you've finished your chocolate.
Yeah, well, that's a hell of a business to be in, because if you're part of a duopoly and you are price gouging, you're jacking up the price of the brands that people know and love, in this case Cadbury. But as my cinematographer Anita mentioned, they are also introducing their own brands into the supermarket and undercutting the favourite brands. So they're profiting on the price gouging of the well-known brands, but they're also increasing their market share by undercutting the well-known brands as well. All right, cocoa prices have doubled. Australia has a duopoly, but Tim, what about inflation? Well, yes, inflation is a thing. I checked the Australian Bureau of Statistics website. Current CPI, consumer inflation in Australia, is about 3.6%. But if we factor in the cocoa price rise, let's be generous. Let's say the brands are raising it about 15%, and the inflation 3.6%. I mean, I'm not a maths genius, but there seems to be a lot of fat in those prices. The duopoly is gouging Australians who love chocolate, but we only visited one half of the duopoly, Coles. Let's visit the other half, Woolworths. $50. I mean, this is a luxury item, so we're not in Hagues. We're not in Australia's finest chocolatier. This is Woolworths. This is $9. Dark chocolate, $9 per 100 gram. Oh, wow. Look at this one. $12. What is it? It's 70 gram. Okay, that's $17 per 100 grams. So $12 for 70 grams. Let's put this in perspective. Okay, this shiny little number, that's 70 grams, but that's only $2.50. $2.50 compared to 12 Australian dollars. I know this is fancy chocolate, but what a markup. Oh, check this out. This is Cadbury chocolate coated hazelnuts. $12 for 280 grams. So 280 grams used to be the size of a decent block of chocolate, but 12 Australian dollars for only 280 grams. That's expensive.
You're rushing away and you're running away from me.
Okay, all right. Okay.
We've got a little empty spot. I just want you to stay and have a rant.
All right, so the obvious objection to inflated prices is we all have a choice as consumers. $2.75 Australian versus $6 Australian. So what happens if our favourite brands disappear? All that'll be left is a supermarket's brand, and you can be guaranteed that they're going to inflate the price of their own block of chocolate to at least $6, and we won't have any choice if the other brand disappears. Don't get me started on ice cream. Actually, do get me started on ice cream. This is 1 litre Murray Street Buller gourmet ice cream. $12 for 1 litre, 12 Australian dollars. But look at this. It's the equivalent gourmet ice cream, but it's the supermarket's own brand, 1 litre, almost half the price, $6.50. So what they're doing We think it's outrageous that the brand is so expensive. But the no-name brand the supermarket's creating itself, they're purposely undercutting some of our favourite brands to increase their own market share. And I'm sure if, because of the power of their duopoly, if they wipe out the other brands, if only their brand is left, I'm sure they're going to jack up the price. Look, inflated prices are not new, and I'm not a genius to notice it. We're all seeing it. But this price gouging has become so extreme, some of our politicians in Australia are now openly criticising the behaviour of Coles and Woolies. For example, Helen Haynes, a Member of Parliament, she said the following: "Like the customers, the farmers are also being pushed to the brink by this supermarket duopoly. While the prices we pay at the checkout have gone up, the prices paid to farmers absolutely have not. And they can't just find someone else to sell to either. As I said earlier, Coles and Woolies are 65% of the supermarket sector, so we all lose here." So Helen Haynes' words are very interesting to me because the supermarkets can point to issues in the supply chain and say, well, everything is costing them more, but clearly they are not passing these profits on to suppliers. They're keeping it for themselves. They are using all the issues in the supply chain and the economy, the 3.6% inflation we talked about, and they're using it as a smokescreen, as cover to gouge prices. So they're pleading innocence, but really it's opportunism. So instability means you are just going to pay a lot more for that shopping trolley full of items. One thing we can do, other than shop at the big two, Coles and Woolies, is give our business to independent or smaller supermarkets. I'm in Aldi at the moment, although no one could ever accuse them of being a small business. Let's check out their chocolate prices. Yeah, so look how much bigger this block of Cadbury is in Aldi. 360 gram, $6.99. So if we want to support our favourite brand, why don't we just shop at Aldi? Oh wow, 40-inch full HD smart TV. I bet this is cheaper than the chocolate in Woolies.
Ooh. I nearly tripped over.